everything that you can imagine to help spread the word and support this community. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one and only Michael Schratt, and he's right there. Michael.
Hi, Jimmy. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm not embarrassing you, am I? We're friends.
No.
Don't tell him I've been over at your house. That's secret stuff, man. I evaded the men in black to get there, Jimmy. And yeah, there you go, Michael. Let's start here. We've done a lot of shows together. We've done a lot of things together over the years. But here we are with all of the research and everything that you have done, and you've been presenting and talking about this subject, and I'm talking about crashes, retrievals, and of course backwards engineering. Your professional background is in aviation and aerospace. And did you ever see a time where this stuff is so forward in the community, in the media, Washington, D.C., of course, our community and whistleblowers, where these subjects are being spoken about out in the open? Flying saucers in possession of the United States government, backwards engineered. That's pretty nuts. Did you ever see a day like this coming?
Well, Jimmy, it's good to be with you. The giggle factor is definitely decreasing, but we're not there yet. What we need is the hard physical evidence. That's what we need.
Well, you're talking my language, right? Now, before we get started, let's talk about Immaculate Constellation for a second. Cool story, right? It's a cool story because that's kind of what it is, because it lacks the substance that would propel it forward. Names, dates, places, evidence, the whistleblower, who is that, and hidden inside of the story where it says, well, nobody knows about this project. It was created in 2017, but Congress doesn't know. Senate doesn't know. President doesn't know. In fact, nobody knows about it. And there are no... Is that more of the same? Is that an example of what you're talking about?
Well, the recent UAP legislation, which recently got passed a second time, you can see what they're doing here is they're kicking the can down the road, and that's why we need to take the bull by the horns and make a management decision. That's what we want to do here tonight.
Well, when you, in your estimation, I should say, if you are protected as a whistleblower and you go down that route, shouldn't the public know the whistleblower's name? And the accuser or the accused should be able to know the whistleblower's name, right?
Well, that's the whole concept behind open congressional hearings. And but we're not there yet. We had congressional hearings last year, and what has become of it? We're still almost exactly where we were before. We've made some progress, but we're still not there yet.
What's your thoughts behind Immaculate Constellation? And by the way, is the name too big for the DoD? They're usually not that sophisticated, right?
I don't think so. I mean, many code names have two words to it. But one thing Jimmy, is that the shorter the code name, the more classified the program. So if you have Leo, that would be higher classification than Forest Green.
Bingo. Michael Schratt bringing it. That's a very important point. And I'm going to say this. If I was naming my project, I'm going to name something that I don't have to spend 5 minutes typing. Right? Because you gotta type that out, right? Leo, bingo, right? Project Sign, Project Grudge, or whatever. That's easy.
Well, you remember where you used to live, Jimmy, right in Burbank. When Who Company used to have a classified program, they never stamped the documents top secret. That way, no one knows if it's classified or not.
Yeah, that's hiding in plain sight, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Now I'm going to ask you something really quick. You know where I live, and you know my proximity to Lockheed Skunk Works. It's 1 mile from my house, right? It's right there, right? Okay. So it's been about 3 months. About 3 months ago, after the show, I went outside. I wish you were here. Man, I wish you were. Man, you would have just loved this. Anyway, so I go outside to watch the meteor shower that was happening at that time. And I was upstairs on my second floor balcony facing Skunk Works. And I walk out of the balcony and I look up and, I see a couple of meteors and I was like, wow, they're going. This is cool. And while I was doing that, and I have my binoculars, I have my night vision, and then this.
Dear Carbon Footprint, you get smaller as Toyota's electrified lineup gets larger. The all-new, all-hybrid Camry takes a bold step. With all-wheel drive available on every trim, the spacious RAV4 and Grand Highlander hybrids sip less fuel and devour more miles. And with the RAV4 Prime and the all-electric BZ4X, you'll plug into even more savings. Yours, Toyota Electrified Vehicles. Toyota, let's go places.
You know what chilly fall weather means? Time to wrap up in your cozy, luxurious Minky Couture blanket. Get to a Minky Couture and check out the fall collection, the Dalton Kincaid collection. And speaking of football, Minky Couture just dropped new Everywhere blankets in Utes Red, BYU Blue, and Aggies Purple. Plus everything else to keep you cozy this fall and winter. Robes, PJs, scarves, and hoodies. Use the code POD40 to get 40% off any full-priced item. That's POD40 in-store or online at softminkyblankets.com.
Object catches my eye, and it had been up there the whole time. I had seen it, but I didn't pay attention to it. I'm watching the meteors, and then, but the object, as it's going to my left, which would be heading north, it's going to my left. It's about 1,000 feet off the ground, maybe 2,000, not very high, but it stops and then backtracks on itself. That caught my attention. So I look at it, and then I notice that the lights on it were all white. It had 3. Were strobing. All 3 were strobing. There was no blue, no red, no green, nothing like that. It was just white. And I watched this thing zigzag right above Skunk Works. And it's in this area. It's not going out of the area, but it's going across, going around. But a couple of times it came out over my house, pretty directly over me, and I got a really good look at it from underneath. And it was 3 lights, triangle, equal. I'm not saying the craft was a triangle. I didn't see the craft, but it was totally silent. And I thought, at first when I saw it, I thought it was a helicopter, but I didn't hear any motors or anything like that, or props or blades. Anyway, so when it came over me, and I'm looking directly underneath it, it was, again, not very high. I'm going to guess and say 2,000 feet, but it was probably 50 feet across. It was good size. And then I watched it go back. It was very smooth, and it's just like cutting back on itself and doing all of these patterns. Then it came back again over my place, like it was showing itself to me. But I looked right up underneath it. And then it went back doing its thing. I watched it for like 30 minutes and I got bored. And I went into the house. The next day, it popped up on social media, UFOs over Palmdale. And there were a couple of videos. I think the videos were CG. I think they were fake. They were not what I saw, but my name was in the comments, in the thread. This is what Jimmy Church saw, and it's not what I saw. What I saw was only white lights, and they were talking about 6 objects. I only saw 1, and I'm not going to turn this into something that it's not. But and I'm not saying it was ET, but it definitely felt experimental, or something was being tested, because it was completely silent, nothing, and it was good size. Have you heard of anything like this? Does that ring any bells for you?
Well, as you know, Air Force Plant 42 is ground zero for the military-industrial complex. So it could have come from Boeing, could have come from Lockheed, could have come from Northrop Grumman, one of our black triangles. Difficult to say.
Yeah. Air Force Plant 42 is right there, you know, it was just bizarre to me. I couldn't. I wish, Michael, that I had something to add to this. I don't. I can only tell you that it was silent. It was level. It never banked or did anything like that. It stayed level like this. But it was the lack of noise that was pretty strange, pretty impressive, and it was pretty good size. Now, is it possible to have blades or props that are stealthy, that are silent? Are those something that are manufactured?
I think we're talking about a different type of propulsion system here. Yeah. If it was a ducted fan type situation or a drone, you probably would have heard that. Although at 2,000 feet, it's a little bit difficult to say for sure.
Yeah. It was a pretty good sized craft, though. It wasn't like, you know, it was this big or it was a few feet. No, it was good size. It was good size. Big enough to put somebody on, for sure. You know, it was a good sized craft. But you haven't heard any reports of anything like this. And again, what does 3 white strobing lights tell you and no navigation lights?
Well, three lights are consistent with what we know about Belgium Triangle 1989, and also what was seen January 5th, Southern Illinois, Flying Triangle, seen by at least 4 to 5 police officers. So they all had that same triangle configuration with the white light below. And then when these things departed, they departed like a spark on a grinding wheel and left no sign of boom whatsoever. So this is 89, 90, and also in 2000.
Yeah, and I didn't see anything crazy. Like, it didn't dart, it didn't fly out into space, there were no lasers coming to the ground, or, you know, pulse weapons. There was nothing, I don't have anything like that to report. There wasn't any super fast, erratic behavior, although it was, I would say the speed was almost the same in whatever direction it was doing, but it was backtracking on itself, and it was just zigzagging right there, just literally above Lockheed, and right behind Lockheed is Air Force Plant 42. That sits right there too as well. So from my vantage point, it could have been either. I always say Lockheed because people know what that is. Most people have never heard of Air Force Plant 42. Yeah. All right.
That's where the magic happens.
What's that?
That's where the magic happens.
You know, I went out there. Well, I'm out there all the time. So, but I took James Fox out there and went up to the gate right there, Air Force Plant 42, the gate, and there are the signs for it, and all of the warning signs and the barbed wire. And you can see that they have 2 security gates in a row that you have to pass through before you go out there. But you look at the hangars. This is the crazy thing about Air Force Plant 42, and you can see this from the fence line. No cars. No cars. You can see the buildings, right? You can see the gate. It's massive. Not a car. Not a single car.
What is it? What is that?
Yeah, it's weird, man. It's weird. I've seen U-2s out there. You know, the U-2s are parked there quite often, and again, I don't want to give away any national security stuff, but I see the U-2s flying overhead. You and I have talked about this before. And for me, as an aviation person, seeing a U-2 in flight is a pretty cool thing. And
it is.
Yeah. And so I've seen that. And the other day, and we'll move on to crash retrievals right now. Check this out. I've seen a lot of cool stuff out here. This is one of the coolest. I'm on my bike. I'm going past Northrop Grumman. And I'm on Columbia Way is the name of the street. And which borders that whole complex. So that street is...
Got something on your mind you need to talk about? Forget texting. Just call up a friend so you can hear a voice. It might be old school, but it helps. This healthy suggestion is brought to you by Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield of Utah. Together we help. Been sitting a while? Maybe it's time to go for a quick walk around the block. Walk, skip, sprint, sashay, whatever gets you up and moving. A little exercise can make a big difference. This healthy suggestion is brought to you by Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield of Utah. Together we help.
probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles long. And I see something on the runway. It's black. But I'm doing 70 miles an hour, right? So I got to watch where I'm going. But I want to see what's on the runway, right? So I take a quick look, and it's black, and then it's a U-2 taking off, right? Very cool. So I'm going down the road. I take another look, and the U-2 takes off. It's very slow. Turns and makes a U-turn. Now it's flying with me, and it goes out in the same direction I'm going in. Turns around. By the time I got to the next light, it landed again, and then took off. Did a touch and go. Went up, did a U-turn. I make a left turn. I'm now in front of Skunk Works, and I'm watching it. And I watch this thing do like 3 or 4 touch and goes. Now tell me, is that like the coolest thing ever? Right? It was
nice to spend an afternoon.
Yeah, it was just amazing. It's got such a unique sound to it. It's a low rumbling. It's not a high-pitched jet sound. It's like a freight train. It's got a weird sound to it. A really weird sound. All right, let's get started with these cases, and we're going to start. We're going to start with 1946.
We can start with 1946. We'll have a couple of quick announcements here. All right, so why don't we go ahead and begin here. This presentation is called Retrievals of the Third Kind, Cosmic Crashes, Corpses, and Cover-Ups. And I want to go over and start here. UFO crash retrievals, the ultimate holy grail of UFO research. Now, why am I calling it the ultimate holy grail of UFO research? It's very simple, because the crash retrievals have the craft, the bodies, and they have the debris all wrapped up into one entity. And this is going to be the vehicle that facilitates disclosure. This is going to be it. We need the hard physical evidence. We don't need any more CE1s or CE2 cases anymore. We've got thousands of cases of lights in the sky. You can go back to the flap of 52. We've got hundreds and hundreds of those cases. We don't need that. Because if we don't really track down these legacy witnesses, we're all going to be here another 50 years and we still don't know what's going on. So that's why it's incumbent upon us now to track down these remaining legacy witnesses, and it's the crash retrieval cases that are going to get us there. A couple of quick announcements here. The content of each case highlighted in this presentation has remained intact for the description of the original source. Number 2, the identity of first-hand sources will be protected per Leonard Stringfield's original agreement with his military contacts. Number 3, visual aids used in this presentation are computer-generated forensic composite illustrations and sketches which originated from the specific details provided by Leonard's sources. So, Jimmy, I want to give you and your listening audience the source material where Leonard Stringfield came up with all his first-hand military witnesses. Who are these people? Well, they're 3-star U.S. Air Force generals, U.S. Air Force fighter pilots, astronauts, commercial pilots, air traffic controllers, neurosurgeons, pathologists, theoretical physicists, mathematicians, U.S. Army officers, U.S. Navy officers, military police, high-level Pentagon officials, top military brass, scientists and engineers who work at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and other government facilities. So these are the credible first-hand military witnesses that were identified by Leonard Stringfield, who not only loaded up the craft on 18-wheeler tractor-trailer lowboy trucks and shipped them to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, but these are the people involved in the autopsies, the pathologist reports, the x-ray technician reports. These are the type of people we want on our team here. Let's continue on. A couple of quick quotes. Number 1, UFO crash retrievals can't be real because if they were, I would have read about them in the local newspaper. That's the first one. Second one, there are not now nor ever have been any extraterrestrial visitors or equipment on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This is their official press release, Jimmy, July 1980. This is what they're saying. They're claiming that they don't have any bodies or debris on the entire Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So what we're going to do in this presentation is we're going to take Leonard Stringfield's witnesses and we're going to go up against the United States government and we're going to see who kind of comes out on top here. All right, so I want to introduce everyone to the man of the hour here. This is Leonard Stringfield. Over about a 30-year period, he collected dozens and dozens of first-hand military witnesses who dealt with the bodies, who dealt with the craft, who were involved in the retrieval operations. These are the people that Leonard had dealt with. A couple of quick bio points here. He was born in 1920, grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. By the time he graduated from high school in 1939, he'd already memorized the entire dictionary. Jimmy, do you know what they called him? Do you know what they called Leonard? He had a nickname.
I don't. Lenny?
They used to call him Webster.
Yeah, Webster.
Because he memorized the entire dictionary. So this is the exact type of person you want to be compiling these witnesses. He joined the military as soon as he heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. After the war, he was employed by a chemical company in Ohio and retired after 30 years. Leonard wrote 2 books. Number 1, Inside Saucer Post 3-0, 1957. Later in 1977, he wrote UFO Siege. Okay, now the next bullet item is the one we want to drill down on tonight. His lecture on UFO crash retrievals at the 1978 MUFON Symposium in Dayton, Ohio, caused an international sensation. Now, why is that the case? Okay, it's simple, because back in 1978, this whole concept of UFO crash retrievals was a new concept back then. Roswell was just getting on the radar screen, so this is all new material. Now, the other thing is, the agreement Leonard made with his first-hand military witnesses is he could preserve an important part of our national history by bringing light to their cases. However, the names had to remain under wraps, and that's where the pushback came in at the MUFON Symposium, because there was no way to independently verify what Leonard was saying. He would not release the names, and he took those names all the way to his grave. And that's the agreement that he made. That's why witnesses felt comfortable coming forward to him, because they knew their identities were safe with Leonard. He passed away in 1994. We'll continue on here. This is Cincinnati Enquirer, July 19th, 1993. It says, author continues quest for truth about UFOs. What I've collected has staggering implications for mankind. This would be...
Got something on your mind you need to talk about? Forget texting. Just call up a friend so you can hear a voice. It might be old school, but it helps. This healthy suggestion is brought to you by Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield of Utah. Together we help.
You know what chilly fall weather means? Time to wrap up in your cozy, luxurious Minky Couture blanket. Get to a Minky Couture and check out the fall collection, the Dalton Kincaid collection. And speaking of football, Minky Couture just dropped new Everywhere blankets in Utes red, BYU blue, and Aggies purple. Plus everything else to keep you cozy this fall and winter. Robes, PJs, scarves, and hoodies. Use the code POD40 to get 40% off any full-priced item. That's POD40 in-store or online at softminkyblankets.com.
The biggest thing since Christ, really. Yeah, it would be. That's a bold statement. But if we could get even one of these cases to be authentic, it would be an absolutely historic event. I also want to mention that there were 22 bank boxes of original testimony, drawings, sketches, letters, names, dates, locations. This is the kind of material that would need to go to open congressional hearings. So I want to mention that as well. Now, for anyone who wants to know where I got the information for the cases that we're going to be going over tonight, this is the book right here. It's called UFO Crash Retrievals, the Complete Investigation Status Reports 1 through 7. So it gives you the dates, it gives you the location, it tells you how the tractor trailer got to MacDill Air Force Base or got to Edwards North Base Complex. It gives you all the intricate details about the entire retrieval operations. Now, I don't know if people can see this, it might be a little bit hard, but as you go through this book, and it's not for the faint of heart, you have to be really interested in this subject matter. I mean, you really have to have an interest in this kind of subject matter. As you go through this book, you're going to find out that there's no drawings, there's virtually no pictures, no illustrations. And so what you're left with, Jimmy, is you're left with coming up with what these crash retrieval cases actually look like in your own imagination, in your mind's eye, which is not technically a bad thing, because we all have our own imaginations. We all can kind of view what we think this thing might actually looks like. However, I wanted to do a deep dive into Leonard's publication with a fine-tooth comb, like word for word, go through every single case, pick out the most mission-critical cases, commit them to number one, a refined drawing based on the military witness testimony. Number two, a full color rendering using the refined drawing as a template. And so over the past 4 years, I've made that my crusade to commit these to drawings and illustrations, and that's what I want to go over with your audience tonight here. Also want to mention Ryan Wood, Magic Eyes Only, Earth's Extraterrestrial Encounters with Extraterrestrial Technology. This is something that Ryan had wrote a little over 20 years ago. He updated it with this volume. So now if we hook these two books together, you've got 119 cases of UFO crash retrievals in Leonard's publication. And then you've got an additional 104 cases within Magic Eyes Only. So now we're pushing 200 cases. And to be conservative, if we only eliminated 50 of these cases, we're still left with 150 crash retrieval cases here. Now, I want to take your listeners, Jimmy, to Las Vegas. I want to take them to Las Vegas. Now, we already know that we've got 119 crash retrieval cases, so let's go to a roulette wheel at one of the big casinos here, and let's just say it had 120 spaces in it, and we bet a chip for each 119 crash retrieval cases. And I think kind of where this is going. Jimmy, we can't lose. We can't lose. The numbers are in our favor. All we need is one of these to be authentic, and the whole concept of UFO crash retrieval non-existence completely falls apart. So really, the numbers are in our favor here. I want to give credit to Rudy Gardea, my sketch artist, who did the drawings to make all this come alive. So let's go ahead and begin here. This is UFO crash retrieval 1942 at an Army base north of Georgia. Even Leonard didn't know where this was. I'm going to give you the page number. It's page 319 in the book. Now, this craft measured about 15 feet wide. It was 10 feet high. It had a series of hieroglyphic-type markings wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft itself. It had 3 levels. Upper level had a display panel, which you can see in Rudy's bubble enlargement drawing there. A display panel with buttons and switches. That was level number 1. Level number 2 had what looked like a wraparound window, and in back of that wraparound window there was what looked like 4 bar stools. That's level number 2. Level number 3 had an entryway hatch. Now, according to the report, there were 4 crew members taken alive. 5 feet tall, 90 pounds, large black eyes, milky white skin. Let me go to the next slide here. This is a blow-up that gives you a little bit more detail on this hieroglyphic type markings seen along the bottom circumference. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because this isn't the only instance of these markings. I've got 4 other cases within the Stringfield collection where they're on the inside wall of the upper dome. We're hearing about writing. So by default, Jimmy, there absolutely has to be, by default, a transnational team of linguistic experts and engineers who are documenting this, who are trying to decode what all this means. There has to be. They've got to have thick 3-ring binders of all this. This must be going on here. Here's my full color rendering just to give people an idea of what this may look like. And this is long before Roswell. This is 1942. When this craft came down, it hit the side of the facility and made a hull breach on the side of the craft. So it ripped open the craft here, according to the eyewitness here. Now, let's go to the next one. This is 1946, Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio. Back in 46, as you know, it was known as Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio. It had not become Wright-Patterson Air Force Base until September of 1947, when the U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force was its own entity.
Right.
Our primary eyewitnesses were an avionics mechanic and his 6-year-old son named Tex Martin. So we've got 2 witnesses in this case. This is UFO Crash Retrievals. This is Leonard's book, page 242, 243. So if anyone wants to follow along, those are the page numbers. Now, what I've got here is a period-correct photograph depicting hangar complex number 4, and it has 5 bays. Bay E is the one on the far right. I believe it took place in this hangar right here. Now, the son, the 6-year-old son, was doing really good in his grades, and so his father said, why don't you come join me at work today, actually the whole week. So he did, and there's an adjoining cafeteria to the main hangar, and there was a janitor who said, this young man looks like a good young man, I'm going to buy him a soda pop. So he asked the father if it was okay. The father said, okay, no problem. So he hands this 6-year-old boy this soda pop, and I'm going to go to the next slide here, and you can see Rudy's drawing. We're roughing out the details. This is not a refined drawing. The second this 6-year-old boy gets a hold of this soda pop, from the inside hangar, the door opens up, and one of these military guards comes walking into the cafeteria. And this 6-year-old boy, Jimmy, he's peering into the hangar now. What does he see? Here's what he sees. He sees 2 18-wheeler tractor-trailer lowboy trucks with unknown tarp debris. And they have tarps.
Working from home? That means you're also eating from home. We suggest stocking your fridge and pantry with fruits and veggies, so you always have a healthy snack within reach. This healthy suggestion is brought to you by Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield of Utah. Together we health. Feeling stiff? Put your hands in the air like you just don't care, or maybe like you do care. Move your arms behind your back, do some gentle twists with your core, and repeat. This healthy suggestion is brought to you by Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield of Utah. Together we help.
Over there they have chains. He also said there was an 18-foot diameter dish-shaped craft sitting on the hangar floor with tripod landing gear legs. There were at least 3 ET corpses laying on stretchers on the hangar floor, and he's looking at all this. Now, what we want to do now is we're going to reverse the angle so I can give you a different perspective here. And now you can see our 6-year-old Tex Martin in the background looking into the hangar. And we've got our 18-wheeler tractor-trailer lowboy trucks. We've got our 18-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. We've got the monuments. We've got the bodies on the ground. And so we're laying out all the monuments in rough form. So what I want to do now, Jimmy, is I want to take you to our final rendering, our final refined drawing. And this is what we came up with. This is back in 1946, Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio. The craft was about 20 feet in diameter. It had 2 rims wrapped around the outer circumference, and you can see the 18-wheeler tractor-trailer lowboy trucks, and our Tex Martin is in the background. We've got the bodies in the foreground. He said there were at least 3 of them, and the father saw it, and the 6-year-old boy saw it as well. So what we want to do now, we'll take this as a guide, we'll take this as a reference, we'll go to the full-color rendering, and this is our full-color rendering. This is Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, 1946, seen by 2 witnesses. Again, 1946.
Any information about where this craft came from?
No, we don't have that information.
Okay.
Now, the father got in big trouble for bringing his son, number 1, and number 2, seeing what he saw inside the hangar. They definitely saw this. There's a 3-page report within the Stringfield book here that talks about all of the intricate details of this case.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
All right, let's continue on here. Now, same location, Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, 1946. Our source, our witness, is a private who worked in records management. And I'm going to divert from Leonard's book one time, and one time only, and I'm going to go to Clark McClellan's book, Space the Final Frontier, page 59. I'm going to hit you with the cover of the book here. This is what the cover of the book looks like, Space the Final Frontier. Within this book, there's a sketch from the original source. And this is what the sketch looks like. This craft was highly polished, mirror reflective exterior, 15 feet in diameter, 7 feet tall. Jimmy, it had no seams, no rivets, no welds, no socket head cap screws, no hex head cap screws, no visible means of propulsion. There were no seats on this thing. It came from Arkansas on a railroad flat car and made it all the way to Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio. And so that's the bottom line on what this thing actually looks like. So let me go to the next slide here. This is my AutoCAD drawing that shows you what this craft actually looks like. Now, if you look at the center part of the craft, there's a central column that was 36 inches in diameter that rose from the bottom of the craft, passed through the midpoint, terminated at the top section here. Now, on the upper right detailed view, Jimmy, what I've done is I peeled back the skin so your listeners and your audience can see the central column. Now, I want to point out that if you look to left of center line on my bottom view here, you'll see a red dot. That is the attempted point of entry with diamond tip drill bits. I've got 3 other cases within the Stringfield collection where we've got these white lab coat technicians that are desperately, and I'm talking about desperately trying to breach the hull of these craft with diamond tip drill bits, Jimmy, and they can't do it. They can't do it. They can't get inside. So let me go to the next slide here. Here is my kindergarten first pass full color illustration just to give people an idea of what this may have looked like back in 1946. And we'll go to Joseph Race, much better refined drawing. And you can see here, he's pulled back the skin on the upper view here on the right-hand side, allowing you to see that central column. There were no switches, there were no buttons, there were no dials in this thing. It was like antiseptically sterile with no welds or seams. He's also got the red dot on the window just left of center. So that's something I want to highlight as well. Okay, so let's go to Rudy's drawing. So the private record management, he is to deliver an envelope to one of these high-level military brass within the hangar. He's met by his friend who's a guard, and this guard says, you know what? I got something I want to show you. So he brings him in the hangar, and right in the back of the hangar is this craft just sitting on the hangar floor. He said that in the report there was a part that was partially folded up. That's mentioned in the report. In the foreground, there was an open toolbox with an electric drill off to the left and a diamond tip drill bit. So they were changing shifts between these lab coat technicians, and he got there at the right place at the right time and was able to see this. So what we want to do now is we want to take this drawing as a reference, and we'll go to the full color rendering, and hopefully we can make this case come alive. And this is what we came up with Joseph Ray. If we could be back there, Jimmy, in 1946.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. Now, really quick before we move on, because there's the lack of any details on the inside, which includes like an eating area, sleeping area, recreation area. There's no ping pong tables, right? There's none of that in there. It would indicate to me that this, yes, it was interstellar, but it was interstellar quickly. You wouldn't get bored because you were possibly traveling 100,000 light years in a couple of seconds and not, a million years.
Sure. Or we could be looking at an unmanned drone.
Or an unmanned drone. Yeah. That's really cool. That's really cool. I mean, what would the windows be for? Why would you have windows if you don't have seats to sit in while you're looking out the windows?
Correct. I debate if they're actually windows.
Yeah, that's right. See, we see windows.
Mm-hmm.
We use the word window. I like that. Okay, moving on.
Okay, so who would have a need to know? 46, 47 time frame. Who would have a need to know? Well, here is the letter. We're all familiar with this. Letter from Nathan F. Twining, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Commander, to Air Force General Brigadier General George Shulgin, September 23rd, 1947. Here he says, the phenomenon reported is something real and not visionary or fictitious. A little bit further down in this letter, it talks about the form, fit, and function of the vehicles, the flight characteristics of the vehicles. It's a watershed document. It's a very historical document. So Nathan Twining would have a need to know. All right, next one. Papagos Indian Reservation, west of Globe, Arizona, January 1947. This is north of Superstition Farms. Now, our witness, Sir...
Gear up for a season of savings with Family Dollar. Whether you're looking for pre-holiday deals or everyday skills, Family Dollar has you covered. Stop by the seasonal aisle for a wide variety of fun decor and accessories. Get festive with harvest and Thanksgiving themed items, or shop ahead for savings on holiday decor like pre-lit trees and more. Find even more great deals when you shop with Smart Coupons. Just download the Family Dollar app, flip and save. Family Dollar, helping you do more.
Every day when you log into ChumbaCasino.com? Ultimate online social casino, you get a free daily bonus. Imagine if you got daily bonuses in other parts of your life.
I chose French fries over loaded French fries.
I asked Stuart from accounting about his weekend, even though I don't care.
I updated my operating system without having to call tech support.
Collect your free daily bonus at ChumbaCasino.com now. And live the Chumba life.
In the U.S. Navy during World War II, this is page 93, case A10 in Leonard's book. So again, I want to give you the references and page numbers of where I'm getting this information. Okay, so our primary eyewitness, he's with another consultant. They're on a Jeep. They're going down an unimproved dirt road, and all of a sudden, Jimmy, they're challenged by 2 armed guards, and they're told to vacate the area immediately. However, it was too late, because another 100 feet down the road off to the left, they were at the right place at the right time in the very beginning of a retrieval operation. So off to the left, they saw about a 30-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It had augured in at a 40-degree angle. It had a low-rise dome on top. There were 2 rings wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft itself, and then there was these indented windows wrapped around the outer circumference. But they didn't get to see all of this. This is in the report. So what we want to do is we'll take Rudy's drawing as a guide. We'll go to the full color rendering, and here's what we came up with: 1947 time frame, Arizona. This is what our witnesses are telling us that they're seeing. And you know, as we go through more of these, the body count goes up, the craft count goes up, the credibility goes up, because you just can't discount all of these firsthand military witnesses.
Now, for
That's
everybody, Globe, Arizona, 30, 40 miles east of Phoenix, out in the desert, past Mesa, Arizona. This isn't the only crash retrieval in that area. I've always looked at the Phoenix, Scottsdale, that whole, because it's wide open desert once you get out there. And there has been many sightings and a few very significant UFO landings and crash retrievals that have been reported in this area.
Okay, good. All right, let's continue on here. So, we talked about the craft. Now, I have a side project that I like to do, Jimmy. It's not only do I like to track down the craft and crash retrievals themselves and the bodies, but I also like to track down the hardware. Where did the hardware go that they retrieved? Where did the hardware go? Well, there's one-page report within the Stringfield Dictation Notes collection that talks about something, Jimmy, called Foote Brothers Gear and Machine Company. So according to Robert Helmold, Foote Brothers Gear and Machine Company of Chicago conducted metallurgical analysis on pieces from a saucer that crashed in Arizona back in 1947. So, of course, I started digging. I started investigating. What do these guys do? So here is Chicago Tribune, January 15th, 1955. It says it makes gears as large as 21 feet in diameter and weighing 45,000 pounds, and others small enough to put on a watch chain. Its gears are found on airplanes of all types, including jets and helicopters. In a year, it will make thousands of different gears for use by industry. So, the bottom line is, if the government, the military industrial complex, U.S. Army personnel, if they retrieve an object of unknown origin and it had an arc radius with some teeth on it that reminded the analysis experts of some type of gear, you'd want to take it to this contractor, because these guys are pros at this.
Yes.
This is exactly the kind of place you'd want to go.
Well done. Well done.
Yep. All right, let's continue. Now, Hendricks Commercial Register, 1909. You can kind of see what these guys do here. So it's checking all the boxes. This is checking out completely perfectly. One more, Purchasing Agent, May 1923, just to give you size comparison of what these kind of they make here. This is absolutely the perfect contractor for any type of gear, any type of teeth they might have seen in arc radius. It would have been sent here. So bottom line is, this is all checking out. Next one, White Sands Missile Range, July 4th. That date is very important. July 4th, 1947. Our witness is a technical sergeant, U.S. Army Air Force, page 196 in Leonard's book. Now, what I've got here is the map of White Sands Missile Range. Where this thing came down was the vicinity of the northern part of the range. And then go to the next slide here. What actually came down was a 150-foot diameter disc-shaped craft. This was not large. I mean, this was a large craft. It had a low-rise dome on top. It came down on a dune that was about a 30-degree angle. And I will mention, Jimmy, that this took place at night, and they had this whole place excruciatingly well lit. They had light-offs, they had spotlights, they had searchlights, they had people with Geiger counters going all around this thing, checking to see for radiation. They had men with still photo cameras. They were taking pictures of this. They had people with motion picture film cameras documenting the whole thing. So bottom line is this whole thing was documented in multiple different ways. We'll go to the full color rendering here. So this is what came down July 4th, 1947 at White Sands Missile Range. Absolutely well documented.
The day after Roswell.
Basically same time frame, yes.
Yeah.
Same time frame.
Yeah.
Yep, same time frame. Now, what's the actionable item here? Since still photography and motion picture film was recorded of this event, senators and congressmen with the appropriate security clearances should track down and utilize this evidence for future public hearings. Now, here's, Jimmy, is where the problem lies, right? Because number one, most of these senators and congressmen, they do not have a high enough security clearance. And number two, they have not been read into these programs. So how can they get access to these programs that they're not cleared for? That's the problem we're running into here. That's the problem. Absolutely.
Fascinating.
Okay. Yep, let's continue on here. Now, UFO crash retrieval, 1947. Jimmy, of all places, a warehouse at Berkeley University. Believe it or not, warehouse at Berkeley University. We've got the name here, Albert Bruce Collins, now deceased. He was a metallurgical engineer. This is page 197 in the book. So our primary eyewitness, he's at the right place at the right time when this 18-wheeler tractor-trailer lowboy truck backs into the warehouse at Berkeley University. And what does he see, Jimmy? He sees this. This looks like a large egg about 30 feet across, about 15 feet high. He literally said, quote, it looked like it was a cracked egg, because you could see the interior of this thing. It literally looked like a cracked egg. Now, on the inside, it had a 36-inch diameter central core or yoke. On the forward portion of the craft itself, there was a composite panel. There was another composite panel that wrapped around the outer circumference of this central yoke or core. He also mentioned that there was a hull breach on the right bottom side of the craft with debris and shrapnel sticking out. So we believe there was an internal implosion and something happened and debris was coming out of this thing from the bottom right-hand corner. And he's looking at all this. So he's got about a 2.5-page report that describes this case in great detail within Leonard's book here. Let me go to the full color rendering. And this is what we came up with just to kind of make this case alive. And the whole goal of all this, Jimmy, is to preserve an important part of our national history by committing these to detailed, refined drawings and full color renderings.
Yeah,
that's the goal of all of it.
Very tasty. And I know what you're thinking too. Feels Socorro-ish.
Yes, it does.
Feels
a little bit.
Is that a word? Socorro-ish? Well, it is now.
Yeah, you can do that.
It is now.
That's all right.
This is
now.
great.
It is now.
Now, I was just going to bring up Salinas. And yes. what I find, let's go through this case. But Salinas is here in California,
correct,
off of the coast. You've been there many times. Everybody goes to Salinas. It's a beautiful town. But you're showing agriculture here. It's famous for a lot of different things, but it's also very beautiful. You know what we don't tie to Salinas? A UFO crash retrieval. Tell me about it. This is great.
Okay, so this is Carrot Patch, south of Salinas, California, July, August 1947, and the primary eyewitnesses were two 19-year-old workers, and the source is Leonard Stringfield's dictation notes collection. That's where I got this information. So you got two 19-year-old boys working in a carrot patch. Now, this craft came down the night before the foreman saw it. The morning when the two boys went to work, this foreman came over to the two boys and said, "Hey, I got something that came down last night. I think you better take a look at it." So he brought him over to the craft. This is the original sketch within the collection in the report. It was not a large craft, 9 feet in diameter, about 4 feet tall. It had a flat top. There was a double row of indented windows wrapped around the water supply. So that's the second time now that I've heard about this double row of indented windows. So this is the original sketch from the report. Now I'm going to go to the map on this one, Jimmy. We actually have a map, and X marks the spot. So if we could go back there, when all this went down, I could probably take you plus or minus 200 feet where this thing came down. If we could go back there. So X marks the spot. We know where this thing came down. We've got the map here. We go to the next slide. Here is my AutoCAD drawing just to give people an idea of what this thing looks like. This is not a large craft. It's only 9 feet in diameter. We'll go to the full color rendering. This is the very first pass on what this thing may have looked like, and you can see this double row of indented windows that pops up at least 3 times within the Stringfield cases here. Now, one of these guys was brave enough to walk up to this thing, and he kicked the side of it with his boot, Jimmy. He made contact with it. Within 5 minutes, there was a military convoy of vehicles that had arrived on the scene. At least 2 Jeeps. There was a 6x6 covered troop transport towing a trailer. And the 2 boys were told to get out of the area, but they did see the retrieval operation. They actually saw these guys manhandle this craft up onto the trailer, secure it with a tarp and chains, and then they move this thing out.
Now, what's the name of? It escapes me right now. What's the name of the Army airfield turned Air Force Base in Monterey?
Monterey, I don't recall.
It's closed now. It's decommissioned, but they use it. But it's not that far from this crash site, so I could see the military showing up there pretty quickly because that base is right there. It's just over a couple of hills.
So I'm going to go to the full color rendering based on Rudy's drawing, and this is what we came up with: Salinas, California recovery. So something like this was seen by the 2 19-year-old workers and the foreman. So technically there's 3 witnesses on this one.
Very cool.
Okay, let's continue on. Now, Danny Sheehan, I want to bring him into this because he plays a role in this entire story here. Most people in the field, they know who he is, but he obtained degrees from Harvard University and Harvard Law School, and as we all know, Danny is a very large advocate for UFO disclosure and transparency. No doubt about it. Back in 1977, Danny was given a one-time only special security clearance to view and investigate classified files at the Library of Congress. I'll move on here a little bit here. These were the classified files specifically associated with Project Blue Book. And I want to mention that these files are not to be confused with the unclassified Project Blue Book records, which have long since been declassified and sent to the National Archives in Washington, D.C. The photos were accessed by Danny Sheehan at the Madison Building basement during January of 1977 under the direction of the Congressional Science and Technology Committee and Marcia Smith at the Congressional Research Service. So this is how he got access to this information. So where are the classified Project Blue Book files now? That's the $65 million question.
For sure.
And we're going to investigate this here. Now, so 1977, Danny goes to the Library of Congress. Specifically, he went to the James Madison Memorial Building. This is what you see here in this photograph. And I want to give everyone a layout of the land here. So you've got the United States Capitol kind of in the middle of the screen here. Off to the right, you've got the Library of Congress. Just south of that, you've got the Madison Memorial Building. This is where all this went down. So he goes into the Memorial Building. We'll go to the next slide here. He goes into the basement. He takes this elevator down, Jimmy, into the basement. Elevator doors open up. Now he's walking down this long corridor where he is met with 2 security guards. They checked his ID. They were expecting him. You know, it is Danny. So he walks into this medium-sized room where off to the right there's kind of a a rolling dolly with some documents there. There's some microfilm reels in a cardboard box that are fastened by a fabric screen. And then off to the left, there's a period correct microfilm reader. So we're going to go to the next one here. And he's looking at these microfilms. And I'm going to move on to the next slide here. This is a period correct microfilm reader. And it dawned on him, and he was thinking, I don't have a lot of time here because we got a lot of documents to get through, and I just can't look through all these documents. I better just look at the microfilm reels. So he opens up the cardboard box, he kind of undoes the little string there, and he starts feeding in one of these reels through the pickup and then brackets it on the other reel, and he's going through these things. As he's going through these pictures, photos, and everything, Jimmy, he comes across 3 photographs that depict a nature scene of a...
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
UFO crasher creek. There was a 30-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It was tipped up at a 30-degree angle. It had a low-rise dome on top. There was hieroglyphic-type writing written along the bottom surface of the upper dome. And what you see here on the lower right is the napkin drawing of the symbols that Danny did for me when I was sitting next to him over at the restaurant about 3 months ago. Rudy was with me, and what we were trying to do is get all this documented. And so he did this kind of a sketcher. Now, next thing that happened is he knew he was limited on time. So what Danny did is he projected this image of this winter scene. Now, there were 4 men in the scene. 3 of them had still cameras. They were taking photographs of the crash and reading operation. The guy off to the left had a dual reel shoulder-mounted motion picture film camera. He was documenting all of this. All 4 men had winter parkas on with their hoods up. They had that furry flange on their hoods. That's exactly what this whole scene looked like. So, Danny projected this photographic scene onto this white thing that you see here on the reader. And then he took his notepad that you see on the upper right, and he started paging through all of the blank pages, and he got to the cardboard backing, laid that down, projected the image of the symbols onto the cardboard backing, and traced Jimmy 1-to-1 per scale exactly what these hieroglyphic type writings look like. By this time, it was time to go, so he packed up his things. He's walking out of the facility, goes back through this corridor. He's met with the guards. They check his ID, and he's let go. He starts walking out this hall, and one of the guards says, "Hey, stop right there. Don't go any further. What's that?" And Danny said, "Well, that's my notebook." And the guy says, "Let me take a look at that." So he hands the notebook to the security guard, and the security guard starts paging through all the blank pages. Jimmy, he never made it to the black cardboard backing, and so Danny walked on the road and the sketch.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. I've asked Danny for that notepad for years, and he says it's packed away. He knows where it is. He will eventually get to a specific storage unit where it sits. Maybe one day we'll get to see that piece of cardboard.
Sure, it would be historic. So what did the whole scene look like, right? So if you look on the bottom, here's Danny's napkin drawing, showing you the symbols and showing you the craft. And so sitting with Rudy, we started going back and forth, refining all the details and getting everything laid out here. Here you see Rudy's drawing up on the top. We're kind of getting things roughed out. And this was about a 3-week period to get the details pinned down on this thing correctly. Here is all of the details that we want to include in the drawing. So, craft measured 30 feet in diameter, tipped up at a 30-degree angle. Craft had a dome on top with what we talked about before, the strange hieroglyphic type symbols on the upper dome, the lower surface of the upper dome. It left a debris trail on the ground, and then where it stopped, if we had a 30-degree angle, there was a mound built up of dirt on the right-hand side. The photo depicted 4 men wearing winter parkas with the hoods up. 3 men had still cameras. 1 guy had a dual shoulder-mounted motion picture film camera. Now, he did not know where this took place, and he didn't know when this took place. So I had to use the motion picture film camera period correct to date this, Jimmy, and the best I can come up with is 1948 to 1961 time frame. That's the best that I could come up with. So I'm thinking that is correct. It is period correct. So all guys in the scene were wearing these winter parkas. They absolutely had the furry flange because Danny said that he could see that in the photographs. He could see that furry flange in the photographs. 3 of these guys had still cameras, so this is a period correct still camera for the time frame. 1 guy didn't have a tripod, but the 4th man off to the left absolutely had one of these shoulder-mounted dual-reel motion picture still film cameras, and he was documenting the whole scene here. And then this is a blow-up of Danny's symbols that he's got on the napkin here. A friend of mine did kind of a cleanup, and these were written on that upper dome section here. So the refining process begins. So I want to take you through the refining process. So here's where we started. We're roughing out the details. Rudy's got the monuments in place. We've got the craft in place. We've got the men kind of laid out here. Let me go to the next slide. Here you can see this built-up mound on the right-hand side. We've got a little bit of a debris trail. We've got the men in place here just roughing out the details. We'll go to the next slide. This is almost a direct side view. Again, this is rough stage. This is all preliminary. This is not to be taken as a refined drawing. And then we kind of get to this this drawing right here. Now we're getting really close here. We've got the men in place. We're getting really close. But it dawned on me that we don't have the viewing perspective correct. What needed to happen is this whole viewing perspective needs to be rotated counterclockwise at least 90 degrees, up to and including 120 degrees. So if we do that, we're going to start heading in that direction. This is a direct side view, and we'll keep rotating another 90 degrees counterclockwise, Jimmy, and what do we end up with? We end up with something that looks very similar to this. Now, when we showed this to Danny, he said, yes, this is the correct viewing perspective. We've got the 4 men in place. We've got the dish-shaped craft. We've got the built-up berm and dome section on the right-hand side, the debris. However, our tip-up angle is too high. We need to bring this down another 15 degrees. And I'm going to hit you with the refined drawing. And Jimmy, this is what we came up with. When we showed this to Danny, he said that this is the most accurate drawing with the exception of actually seeing the actual photograph. So I submit that this is just about as good as we're going to get without seeing the actual photograph. Now, this thing has all the monuments in place. We've got the 4 men, we've got the parkas, we've got the furry flanges, we've got the winter scene, we've got the tip-up angle, and we've got the motion picture film reel camera. However, Jimmy, I didn't want to stop just here. I wanted to see if I could take this to the next level, and I wanted to push the envelope, see if I can take this to the next level. So I put out a call across the entire world, UFO crash retrieval illustration contest. And so I had a $100 cash prize. I know it's not much, but we're working on a shoestring budget here. $100 cash prize for the first person that can do a photorealistic rendering depicting this crash.
How to have fun, anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com.
Got it.
Step 2, collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3, play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4, unleash your excitement.
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Welcome to where the 5 to 9 more than makes up for the 9 to 5. You check your worries the moment you walk in. Every day feels lucky, even at night. Welcome to the chance to savor every moment. Every time you're here. Your old friends, new experiences, and great times. Welcome to where life moves at the speed of light. This is your time. This is your place. Welcome to
retrieval scene based on Rudy's drawing. And I got entries from all around the country. I got entries from all around the world. And I want to hit you with some of these entries here. I'm not going to go over all of the parameters. We already talked about this, but it had to be a winter scene. It had to be 30-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It had to have the 4 men. They all had to have the cameras. So let's continue on here. Now, I want to mention that there is a theoretical limit to what results can be achieved by typing in prompts into an AI image generator. You're not going to get exactly what you want. You still need the human touch because we're just not there yet. The technology is just not there yet. You can type all day long and it will not give you what you need. So what you end up doing is you end up with a hybrid illustration. You take AI for the background, okay? And then you use 3D Studio Max or another software program to do a one-to-one construction of the craft completely correct per the drawing and original sketch. Then you finish up with Photoshop to bring in your elements, equipment, and personnel. That's how you get to where you want to go. You can't get there using an AI image generator. You still need the human touch. So here was the first pass here. This is by Sean Linehan. It's an honorable mention. The guy did a good job. He's got the winter scene here. We've got the 4 men. We've got all the parkas are in place. They've got the furry flange here. They've got the motion picture still cameras. He's got the writing on the bottom section of the upper dome. So this is a good first pass. Let's go to another one. This is by Ben Lewis. Another noble attempt. Guy did a good job. He's got the winter scene. We're kind of heading into this photorealism. We want to make this case come alive. Let me hit you with the next one here. This was my winner. He won the $100 cash prize, so I want to give credit to Skylar Stallings. And this is basically what was seen in the photograph by Danny Sheehan back in 1977. This is just about the theoretical limit of how we're going to get until we see the actual photograph. So this is the kind of material, the legitimate, actual, not the unclassified Project Blue Book files, but the classified Project Blue Book files that Danny said came from off-site into the Madison building, into the Madison basement area. That's where these files came. Those are the kind of files that we need to get shipped over to the congressional hearings. Now, I had a late entry. After all this was all over, prize was sent out. Another gentleman came back and